The morning rain painted streaks across the windows of Luna Cafe as Sophia Chen wiped down tables for what felt like the 100th time that day. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her uniform carried the faint aroma of coffee beans and fresh pastries. At 24, she had learned that life rarely followed the fairy tale script she once believed in. The breakfast rush was finally ending when her phone buzzed. Sophia glanced around nervously before stepping into the storage room to take the call. The number on the screen made her stomach drop. "Mrs. Chen, this is Attorney Williams." The voice on the other end sounded tired and defeated. "I'm calling about your custody hearing next month." Sophia pressed the phone closer to her ear, her hands trembling slightly. "Please tell me you have good news. I wish I did." "Your ex-husband's legal team has presented a strong case. Has a stable job at the marketing firm, his own apartment in the business district, and he's earning over $60,000 a year. The court tends to favor the parent, who can provide better financial stability." The words hit Sophia like cold water. She had been dreading this conversation for weeks, but hearing it confirmed felt devastating. "But Emma is happy with me. She barely remembers Robert. He left us 2 years ago without even saying goodbye. I understand, Mrs. Chen, but the law focuses on what's best for the child's future. You need to demonstrate financial stability before the hearing. A better job, improved living conditions, something that shows you can provide for Emma's needs." Sophia closed her eyes and leaned against the boxes of supplies. $60,000 a year. She barely made $20,000 working double shifts at the cafe. Her tiny apartment in the old part of town was clean but cramped, and she couldn't even afford a decent lawyer. "If you could secure better employment or show significant income improvement, we might have a chance." "But Mrs. Chen, you have less than 4 weeks. After the call ended, Sophia remained in the storage room for a few minutes, collecting herself. Emma was everything to her. The thought of losing her daughter to a man who had abandoned them both was unbearable. She straightened her apron, put on her professional smile, and returned to the dining area. The afternoon crowd was lighter, mostly business people grabbing quick lunches and students studying with their laptops. Sophia moved efficiently between tables, taking orders and serving food. But her mind kept returning to the impossible situation she faced. At a corner table near the window sat a man who had been there for over 2 hours. He wore an expensive navy suit and occasionally glanced up from his laptop and documents spread across the table. Sophia had served him coffee 3 times, and each time he had been polite but distant. There was something about his focused intensity that reminded her of the successful businessmen who sometimes came to the cafe for meetings. James. Wellington reviewed the inheritance documents for the 5th time that afternoon. The legal language was crystal clear, but the situation remained absurd. His father's will stipulated that he must marry within 6 months of the patriarch's death, or Wellington Industries would be dissolved and the assets distributed to distant relatives at 32. James had built his technology company from a small startup to a billion-dollar empire. He had sacrificed personal relationships, social life, and even basic pleasures to focus on business success. Now, for months after his father's funeral, he faced the ultimate irony. All his achievements meant nothing if he couldn't find a wife. In 8 weeks, the women in his social circle had proven problematic. They saw opportunity rather than partnership, and their obvious interest in his wealth made genuine connection impossible. He needed someone who understood this was a business arrangement, someone who wouldn't complicate the situation with unrealistic, romantic expectations. As James pondered his limited options, he overheard a phone conversation from the storage room. The waitress who had been serving him was speaking in hushed, desperate tones about custody and financial stability. When she emerged, he could see the worry in her eyes despite her professional composure. James had always been good at reading people and situations. It was a skill that had served him well in business negotiations. Something about this woman's genuine distress resonated with him. She wasn't performing or manipulating. She was facing a real crisis that threatened something precious to her. When Sophia returned to refill his coffee, James made a decision that would change both their lives. "Excuse me," he said, causing her to pause. "Could you sit down for a moment? I have a business proposition that might interest you." Sophia looked around the nearly empty cafe, Her shift supervisor was in the kitchen, and the few remaining customers. "Seems settled, sir. I'm working right now. If you need something else from the menu, I need a wife," James interrupted gently. "And from what I overheard, you need financial security to keep custody of your daughter." The directness of his statement left Sophia speechless. She stared at this stranger who had just casually mentioned marriage as if he were ordering another cup of coffee. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said carefully, though her cheeks flushed with embarrassment at being overheard. James pulled out a business card and placed it on the table. "My name is James Wellington. I own Wellington Industries. My father died 4 months ago and left a clause in his will requiring me to marry within 6 months, or I lose everything I've built." Sophia glanced at the business card. Wellington Industries was a name she recognized from news articles about successful tech companies. "And what does this have to do with me? I need someone who understands this would be a contractual arrangement, not a romantic fairy tale. Someone who has their own compelling reasons for agreeing to the terms. In exchange, I can offer you the financial stability you need to win your custody case." The proposal was so unexpected that Sophia almost laughed. Almost. But the desperation of her situation kept her grounded in the reality of what he was suggesting. "You're serious, completely. Think of it as a job, with exceptional benefits. You would have your own living space, complete freedom regarding your daughter, and a salary that would satisfy any family court judge." Sophia looked around the cafe. Again, other customers were starting to notice their conversation. "I can't discuss this here. My shift ends at 7. If you're really serious about this crazy idea, you can wait for me in the parking lot." James nodded and left a $50 bill on the table, far more than his order cost. "Mrs. Chen, I know this sounds impossible, but sometimes impossible solutions are exactly what desperate situations require." After he left, Sophia spent the rest of her shift in a daze. Customers came and went. She took orders and served food, but her mind kept returning to the impossible conversation. A marriage of convenience to a billionaire? It sounded like something from the romance novels she used to read in high school. At 7 o'clock, she found James Wellington waiting beside a sleek black car in the parking lot. The evening air was cool, and she pulled her jacket tighter as she approached him. "You actually waited. I told you I was serious. Would you like to go somewhere we can talk privately? There's a quiet restaurant a few blocks away." Ended up at a small family-owned Italian place where the lighting was dim and the tables well-spaced for privacy. James ordered wine, but Sophia stuck to coffee. Her nerves couldn't handle alcohol. "Before we discuss details," James began, "I want to be completely honest about my situation. This isn't something I planned. My father was controlling in life and apparently decided to continue that pattern after death. I've spent the last 4 months trying to find legal ways around the will, but my lawyers confirm there aren't any." Sophia stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "And the women in your usual social circle aren't interested in a temporary business arrangement? They're interested, but for the wrong reasons. They see this as an opportunity to access wealth permanently. Have something different motivating you?" "My daughter, exactly. You're not looking for a husband. You're looking for a solution that makes you the ideal candidate." Sophia studied his face. He was undeniably attractive, with dark hair and intelligent brown eyes, but there was also a coldness there, a distance that spoke of years spent prioritizing business over personal connections. What exactly would this arrangement involve? James pulled out a folder. "I had my lawyers draft a preliminary agreement. The marriage would last 2 years minimum. You would receive a monthly payment of $50,000. Your own residence, and all expenses covered for you and your daughter. In exchange, you would accompany me to business and social events where a wife's presence is expected." $1,000 a month. Sophia tried to process the number. It was more than double her annual salary. And after 2 years? Clean divorce, generous settlement to help you establish your new life. And I would ensure you had the resources to maintain the stability you'd gained. What about Emma? How would you explain a stepfather who suddenly appears and then disappears? Considered this carefully. That's something we'd need to handle delicately. Children adapt better than adults sometimes, but you know your daughter best. We could present it as a friendship that grows into something more, and then, if necessary, explained that sometimes adults' lives take different directions. Sophia thought about Emma, who had asked just last week why she didn't have a daddy like her friends at school. The innocence of the question had broken Sophia's heart because she didn't have a good answer. "This is insane," she said finally. Double quotes, "Yes, it is. But it's also practical. We both get what we need most, and neither of us has unrealistic expectations about romance or permanence." Sophia looked around the restaurant, thinking about her tiny apartment, her exhausting work schedule, and the looming threat of losing. "Emma too? Robert? I need time to think about this." "Of course. Oh. But I need an answer by tomorrow evening. Legal marriages require time for paperwork, and my deadline doesn't change." James wrote his personal phone number on the back of his business card. "Call me at 8 tomorrow night with your decision. If you agree, we can meet with lawyers Monday morning to formalize everything." As they prepared to leave, Sophia had one more question. "Why me? I mean, really, you could find someone more suitable, someone from your world who understands high society." James paused at the restaurant door. "Because when I watched you work today, I saw someone who handles pressure with grace, treats difficult people with patience, and clearly loves her child more than anything else in the world. Those qualities matter more than social connections." That night, Sophia sat in Emma's bedroom, watching her daughter sleep. Emma was 6 years old, with dark hair like her mother's, and an infectious laugh that could brighten Sophia's worst days. She was smart, curious, and deserved every opportunity life could offer. Robert wanted custody not because he loved Emma, but because having a child would improve his image at work and in his social circles. He had told Sophia as much during their last phone conversation, explaining that successful men were expected to have families. The irony wasn't lost on her. Robert wanted Emma as an accessory to his lifestyle, while James Wellington was offering to be an accessory to hers. At 2 in the morning, Sophia was still awake, weighing options and consequences. The marriage proposal was risky, unconventional, and complicated. But losing Emma to Robert was unthinkable. For the first time in 2 years, Sophia Chen had hoped that maybe, just maybe, there was a way to keep her daughter and build a better life. The question was whether she had the courage to take such an enormous leap of faith with a man she barely knew. Tomorrow's phone call would determine the direction of her entire future. The next evening arrived with unusual clarity. Sophia had spent the day in a fog of indecision, mechanically going through her routine of getting Emma ready for school, working her morning shift at the cafe, and picking up her daughter from the neighbor who watched her in the afternoons. Emma chatted excitedly about her day while they ate dinner together in their small kitchen. She had learned about butterflies in science class and was fascinated by how they transformed from caterpillars. Sophia found herself wondering if her own life was about to undergo a similar metamorphosis. "Mommy, why do you look sad?" Emma asked, her 6-year-old intuition picking up on her mother's distraction. "I'm not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking about some grown-up things." "Is it about Daddy Robert? Mrs. Garcia next door said he might come." "Take me away." Sophia's heart clenched. She had tried to shield Emma from the custody battle, but children heard more than adults realized. "Nobody is taking you away, baby. Mommy is working very hard to make sure we stay together." After Emma went to bed, Sophia sat at her kitchen table with James Wellington's business card in front of her. The clock on the wall ticked steadily toward 8 o'clock. Each minute that passed felt like a decision point that would ripple through the rest of her life. At exactly 8, she dialed his number. Sophia. James answered on the second ring. "I was hoping you'd call. Been thinking about your proposal all day. It's completely insane. But..." Sophia took a deep breath. "But losing Emma would destroy me. If this arrangement can prevent that, then I'm willing to try." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Are you certain? Once we begin the legal process, it becomes complicated to reverse course. I'm certain that I'll do whatever it takes to keep my daughter. Everything else, we'll figure out as we go. Then we move forward. Can you meet me tomorrow morning at 9? My lawyer's office is downtown. We'll need to discuss the specific terms and get all the paperwork started." The next morning, Sophia called in sick to work for the first time in 6 months. She dropped Emma at school and took 2 buses to reach the law offices of Morrison, Hayes, and Associates. The building was all glass and steel. It's the kind of place she had only seen in movies. James was waiting in the lobby wearing another expensive suit, but his expression was more relaxed than it had been at the restaurant. Ready for this? As ready as someone can be for something this unprecedented? They were shown to a conference room where 2 lawyers waited with documents spread across a mahogany table. James introduced them as his personal attorney, Patricia Morrison, and a family law specialist, David Chen. No relation, David Chen said with a smile, noting Sophia's reaction to his surname. Though I specialize in custody cases, which I understand is relevant to your situation. For the next 2 hours, they reviewed contract terms that would govern their unusual arrangement. The financial provisions were more generous than James had initially described. Beyond the monthly payments, there would be a trust fund established for Emma's education, health insurance for both of them, and a substantial settlement at the end of their marriage. The prenuptial agreement protects both parties, Patricia Morrison explained. Mr. Wellington retains his business assets and personal wealth accumulated before the marriage. Mrs. Chen receives the agreed compensation and keeps all gifts or purchases made during the marriage period. David Chen focused on the custody implications. This marriage will significantly strengthen your position in family court. A stable-to-parent household with substantial income typically trumps a single-parent situation. Regardless of the biological father's financial status, what about the temporary nature of the arrangement? Sophia asked. Won't that be a problem later? Not necessarily. Many marriages end in divorce. What matters to the court is the stability and resources available to the child during the crucial developmental years. James had been quiet during most of the legal discussion, but now he leaned forward. I want to add a clause that wasn't in the original draft. If at any point during the 2 years Sophia feels unsafe or uncomfortable with the arrangement, she can terminate the contract immediately with full compensation. Patricia Morrison looked surprised. That's quite generous and somewhat unusual. This situation requires trust from both parties. Sophia is taking a significant risk. I want her to know she has options if circumstances change. After the lawyers finished their explanations, James and Sophia found themselves alone in the conference room. The weight of what they were about to commit to settled between them. Last chance to reconsider? James said quietly. Are you reconsidering?
I know.
This arrangement solves my problem efficiently, but you're the one making the bigger life change. Sophia thought about Emma's bright smile that morning, her excitement about show and tell, her innocent questions about why some families look different than others. My daughter deserves security and opportunities. If I can provide that by entering into a business marriage with you, then that's what I'll do. They signed the papers that afternoon. The wedding was scheduled for the following Friday at the city courthouse. It would be a simple civil ceremony with Patricia Morrison and David Chen as witnesses. James suggested they invite Emma, but Sophia wasn't sure how to explain the sudden marriage to her daughter. Children adapt to change better when they're included rather than surprised, James said as they walked to the parking garage after leaving the lawyer's office. But you know Emma best. That evening, Sophia faced one of the most difficult conversations of her life. She sat on Emma's bed while her daughter played with her favorite stuffed rabbit. Emma, you know how sometimes mommies and daddies get married when they love each other? Like in princess movies? Sometimes. But sometimes adults get married because they want to help each other and be a family together. Emma looked up with curious eyes. Are you going to marry someone, Mommy? I'm going to marry a very nice man named James. He wants to help take care of us, and he's excited to meet you. Will he be my new daddy? The question pierced Sophia's heart. How could she explain that this daddy would be temporary? He'll be your stepfather. That means he'll help take care of you and be part of our family. What about Daddy Robert? Daddy Robert will still be your father, but James will live with us and help Mommy. Emma considered this seriously. Is James nice? Yes, sweetheart. He's very nice, and he's looking forward to being part of our family. Okay, Emma said simply. Returning to her rabbit, children's acceptance of change often amazed adults with its straightforwardness. The wedding day arrived with unexpected nervousness on both sides. Sophia had purchased a simple blue dress that Emma declared pretty like a real princess. James wore a dark gray suit and looked every bit the successful businessman, but there Was tension in his shoulders that suggested this? It was more stressful than his usual business dealings. Emma held her mother's hand as they stood before the judge. When asked to exchange rings, James produced simple gold bands that fit perfectly. He had remembered to ask Sophia's ring size during one of their planning phone calls. "Do you, James Wellington, take Sophia Chen to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Do you, Sophia Chen, take James Wellington to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." The kiss was brief and formal, but Emma clapped enthusiastically, which made both adults smile genuinely for the first time that day. After the ceremony, they went to lunch at a family restaurant Emma chose. James had researched child-friendly places and asked Emma what she liked to eat. His consideration for her preferences surprised Sophia. "So what happens now?" Sophia asked as they shared appetizers. "Oh, we learn how to be a family," James said, then looked at Emma. "What do you think, Emma? You ready to move to a house with a big yard?" Emma's eyes widened. "A yard? Can we get a puppy?" James looked at Sophia, who nodded slightly. "We can definitely talk about a puppy." The house James had purchased was in an upscale suburb with excellent schools. It had 4 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and the promised yard where Emma could play safely. Moving day was an adventure for Emma, but overwhelming for Sophia. "So big," she whispered as they toured. The master bedroom. "You'll get used to it," James said. "I want you both to feel comfortable here." The first week of their marriage was an exercise in adjustment. James left early for work and returned in the evenings to find Sophia helping Emma with homework or preparing dinner. He joined these domestic routines hesitantly, as if unsure of his role. Emma had no such hesitations. She claimed James immediately, showing him her toys, asking for help with puzzles, and insisting he read bedtime stories. His initial awkwardness with children gave way to genuine enjoyment of her curiosity and enthusiasm. Remarkable. James told Sophia one evening, after Emma had finally gone to sleep. They were sitting in the living room, maintaining the careful distance they had established. "She likes you." "I was worried about that." "Were you worried she wouldn't, or worried she would?" Sophia considered the question. "Both, I think. It would be hard if she rejected you. But it might be harder when this arrangement ends, and she has to say goodbye to another father figure." James was quiet for a moment. "We have 2 years to figure out how to handle that transition. Maybe by then the solution will be clearer." 3 weeks into their marriage, Robert made his first appearance at their new house. He arrived unannounced. On a Saturday morning, driving an expensive car and wearing an attitude of barely contained anger, Emma was in the backyard with James, who was teaching her to throw a baseball when the doorbell rang. Sophia answered to find her ex-husband's cold stare. "Nice place," Robert said, pushing past her into the house. "It's quite an upgrade from that apartment." "Robert, you should have called first. I wanted to see how my daughter is living. From what I hear, you've done quite well for yourself." James appeared in the doorway, having heard unfamiliar voices. Emma peeked around him shyly. "You must be the new husband," Robert said, his tone openly hostile. "Convenient timing, wasn't it?" Robert, "This is James. James, this is Emma's father." James stepped forward and extended his hand. "Nice to meet you." Robert ignored the gesture. "Emma, come here. I want to talk to you." Emma moved closer to James instead of going to her father. "Hi, Daddy Robert. Don't you want to give your father a hug?" Emma dutifully hugged Robert, but the interaction felt forced and uncomfortable. She quickly returned to James's side. "We're just playing catch," Emma announced. "James is teaching me to throw like a real baseball player." "That's nice, sweetheart, but I'm your real father. James is just—" Robert looked between Sophia and James. Temporary help. The words stung. Because they were true, but hearing them spoken so dismissively in front of Emma made Sophia angry. "Robert, perhaps we could discuss this privately," James suggested diplomatically. "There's nothing to discuss. I know exactly what this marriage is about, but enjoy it while it lasts, because I'm not giving up on getting custody of my daughter." After Robert left, the house felt different. Emma was quiet during lunch, clearly affected by the tension she had witnessed but didn't understand. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Sophia and James had their most honest conversation since the wedding. "He's right, Sophia said, as they sat in the kitchen. "This is temporary, and Emma is getting attached to you." "Are you getting attached too?" "Duh. The question surprised her. I can't afford to get attached. Is this a business arrangement? Is it, though? Because it doesn't feel like business when I help Emma with her homework. Or when the three of us cook dinner together. Or when she falls asleep between us during movie night. Sophia looked at him carefully. James, we agreed on the terms. 2 years, then we go our separate ways. I know what we agreed. But agreements can be modified if both parties consent. What are you saying? James ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Sophia had learned meant he was processing complex thoughts. I'm saying that I've never had a family before. Didn't know what I was missing. Now that I do, the idea of giving it up feels... Feels what? Wrong. The admission hung in the air between them, changing the careful balance they had maintained. They were no longer just business partners sharing a house. They were two people discovering that emotional connections couldn't be controlled by legal contracts. Sophia realized that somewhere between baseball lessons and bedtime stories, between family dinners and quiet conversations after Emma's bedtime, they had started becoming something neither of them had planned for. They had started becoming real. 4 months into their marriage, Sophia woke up to the sound of laughter echoing from the kitchen. It had become their Saturday morning tradition. James teaching Emma to make pancakes while she attempted to flip them higher than necessary. The domesticity of it all still caught Sophia off guard sometimes. She found them covered in flour. Emma standing on a step stool beside James as he guided her hands with the spatula. Their easy companionship had developed naturally, without the awkwardness Sophia had feared. Mommy, look. I made a pancake that looks like a butterfly, Emma announced proudly, holding up a slightly lopsided creation. It's beautiful, sweetheart, Sophia said, accepting the coffee James handed her. These small gestures had become routine, yet they still carried weight. The morning peace was interrupted by Sophia's phone ringing. She recognized the number of David Chen, their family lawyer. Mrs. Wellington, he said, using the name that still felt strange to Sophia. I need to see you and your husband as soon as possible. Robert has filed new motions, and they're concerning. An hour later, they sat in David's office while Emma played at a nearby children's center. The lawyer's expression was grave as he spread documents across his desk. Robert has hired a private investigator, David began. He's questioning the legitimacy of your marriage and has gathered what he believes is evidence of fraud. Sophia's blood ran cold. What kind of evidence? Photos of you and James maintaining separate bedrooms. Testimony from your former co-workers about the sudden marriage. Financial records showing the large payments to your account. James leaned forward. Is any of this actually problematic legally? It could be, if the court determines the marriage was solely for the purpose of gaining custody advantages. They might view it as an attempt to manipulate the legal system. But we are legally married, Sophia said. We live together, we're raising Emma together. The question is whether the court believes the marriage is genuine or merely a legal arrangement. Robert's lawyer is arguing that Emma deserves an authentic family environment, not a performance. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Over the past 4 months, their performed family had begun feeling increasingly real. But proving that to a court would be challenging. What do we need to do? James asked. We need to demonstrate that this marriage has become genuine. The court will likely interview Emma, and they'll be looking for evidence of a real family dynamic. That afternoon, they explained the situation to Emma as gently as possible. She listened with the serious expression she wore when trying to understand adult problems. The judge wants to make sure you're happy, living with Mommy and me, James explained. But I am happy, Emma said simply. We're a family. Some people think families have to look a certain way, Sophia added. But what matters is that we love and take care of each other. Emma considered this. Do you and James love each other like married people? The question hung in the air. Sophia and James exchanged glances, both aware they were approaching territory they had carefully avoided. We care about each other very much, Sophia said carefully. And we both love you, James added, which was unquestionably true. The custody hearing was scheduled for the following month. In the weeks leading up to it, Sophia found herself hyper-aware of their family dynamics. Were they convincing enough? Did they look like a real family to outside observers? One evening, while James helped Emma with a school project and Sophia prepared dinner, she realized she had stopped performing. The contentment she felt watching them work together wasn't calculated or strategic. It was genuine. "James," she said later, after Emma was asleep, "we need to talk about something important." They sat in the living room, maintaining the careful distance that had become their habit. But tonight, the space between them felt charged with unspoken truths. "I've been thinking about what David said, about proving our marriage is real. Sophia, if you're worried about the hearing, we'll figure it out." "That's not what I'm worried about." She took a breath. "Worried about what happens after we win." James studied her face. "What do you mean?" "Our agreement was for 2 years. But Emma talks about you like you're her real father. She makes plans that include you for years into the future, and I've stopped thinking about this as temporary." The admission surprised them both. James was quiet for a long moment. "I stopped thinking about it as temporary months ago," he said finally. "But I didn't want to complicate things by saying that. So what are we saying now? Maybe we're saying that sometimes the best business decisions accidentally become the best life decisions." Before either could analyze the implications, Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "I had a bad dream," she said, padding over to the couch. Without hesitation, she climbed between Sophia and James, snuggling against both of them. It was a position that had become familiar during their movie nights, but tonight it felt like a statement about who they had become. "What was your dream about, sweetheart?" Sophia asked, stroking Emma's hair. "I dreamed that Daddy Robert took me away, and I couldn't find you and James anymore." James wrapped his arm around Emma protectively. "It's not going to happen. We're not going anywhere. Promise." Sophia looked at James over Emma's head. "We promise," she said, making a commitment that extended far beyond their original agreement. The custody hearing arrived with surprising calm. Robert appeared confident, flanked by his expensive legal team. But when the judge interviewed Emma privately, she spoke with clarity about her life and preferences. When called to testify, James surprised everyone, including Sophia, with the emotion in his voice. "When I married Sophia, I thought I was solving a business problem," he told the court. "I didn't expect to discover what it meant to be part of a family. Emma has taught me that being a parent isn't about biology or legal documents. It's about showing up every day, caring about someone else's happiness more than your own, and being willing to fight for what they need." Sophia's testimony focused on stability and continuity. Emma has flourished in the past 4 months. She's confident, happy, and secure. She knows she's loved and wanted. Disrupting that stability would be harmful to her development. Robert's lawyer tried to emphasize the questionable origins of the marriage, but David Chen had prepared thoroughly. Character witnesses testified about the family they had observed. Emma's teacher spoke about the positive changes in her behavior and confidence. Even neighbors testified about seeing them together at community events. The judge deliberated for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. "This court recognizes that families come in many forms," she finally announced. "What matters most is the well-being and best interests of the child." Emma clearly thrives in her current environment. She has stability, resources, and most importantly, adults who prioritize her needs. Custody remains with the mother, with supervised visitation rights for the father. The relief was overwhelming. As they left the courthouse, Emma ran ahead too, the car chattering excitedly about celebrating with ice cream. Sophia and James walked more slowly, processing what had just happened. "We did it," Sophia said. "We did." "James, about what you said in there about not expecting to discover what family meant, ... I meant every word." They reached the car where Emma was already buckled in and planning their celebration dinner. As James started the engine, Sophia made a decision. "Emma, what would you think if James adopted you officially?" "So you'd be Emma Wellington?" Emma's face lit up. "Really? James would be my real dad forever? If that's what you want?" James said, his voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I want that more than anything." That evening, after Emma had finally exhausted herself with excitement and gone to bed, Sophia and James found themselves on the back porch, looking at the stars. "So what happens now?" Sophia asked. "Our original agreement kind of becomes meaningless after today." Maybe we write a new agreement. Kind of agreement? James turned to face her. The kind where we agree to figure this out as we go. No timeline, no exit strategy. It's just a commitment to be honest with each other and put Emma's happiness first. What about our happiness? I think our happiness is tied up in hers now, and in each other's. Sophia realized he was right. Somewhere between business arrangements and custody battles. Between pancake mornings and bedtime stories, they had built something neither had planned but both wanted to keep. I love you, she said simply. I love you too, he replied. Both of you, more than I knew I could love anyone. When they kissed this time, it wasn't for show or legal requirement. It was because they had found something real in the most artificial. Beginning imaginable. 6 months later, Emma officially became Emma Wellington in another courthouse ceremony. This time her smile was pure joy as she stood between her parents. Now united not by contracts, but by choice, they had learned that sometimes the most important promises are the ones you never planned to make. And the strongest families are built, not on perfect foundations, but on the willingness to grow, adapt, and love beyond the boundaries of original expectations. Their story had begun with desperation and necessity, but it became a testament to the unexpected ways love can flourish when people are brave enough to take chances on each other. In the end, James kept his company, Sophia gained security for her daughter, and Emma got the family she had always wanted. But more importantly, 3 people discovered that the best things in life often come from the most unlikely beginnings.